So a while ago, I was trying to get hired by this real estate company to speak to their real estate agents. And what happened in the conversation was actually kind of interesting. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of speakers have trouble getting on stages and getting hired when they pitch an event, because they do it in a worse way of what I'm about to tell you that I did. So what happened is, as we're talking about the event, we're talking about their agents and everything and motivating their agents. I said this, I was like, oh, I get standing ovations every single time. The reason I said that is because in order to get a standing ovation, you have to be great. I mean, like, your audience is like, damn, shoot, and the audience like stands up, right? So it's very obvious to me as to why I did that, to why I say, like, hey, I get standing ovations every time. And then instantly she said, I don't care how many standing ovations you get. I want to know that the agents are inspired to actually do something, right? And to me, it was one and the same thing. I was like, what? We're talking about the same thing. Like, people give standing ovations because they're inspired, because they thought it was amazing. But as soon as I said it, she was like, I don't care how many standing ovations you get. And this is the same mistake that speakers make when they're pitching themselves without realizing it. So what I see a lot of speakers do is that they're pitching themselves either on the phone, in an email, in a Facebook message, whatever it is, and they think too much from their perspective, and that's why someone doesn't hire them. Because they say things like, oh, I'd love to come speak at your event. Basically about me is that I climb Mount Everest with one arm and one leg, and they go into this whole detail about them. I'm an author of so-and-so, and they go into all this detail about them. Nowhere in that email, nowhere in that conversation do they mention why they should actually present at that event. Like, nowhere do they even talk about that specific event or that specific person. They're simply thinking from their perspective too much, instead of thinking from the event's perspective about how engaging they are as a speaker, how entertaining they are, how funny the presentation is. They don't even mention that at all. And so that is why all these speakers have such a hard time getting on stages. If you want to get on stages more often, if you want to learn to pitch in a more effective way, you have to ignore everything about yourself and think 100% from their perspective. Because you will say things about you and they will think, so what? That's probably the best copywriting advice I ever heard is, so what? Imagine you say something to them. You say, oh, I climbed Mount Everest. In their mind, they're saying to you, so what? What does that have to do with my event? When you say, I'm an author of XYZ book, they think, so what? What does that have to do with my event? So whenever you say, I climbed Mount Everest, you have to follow it up with, so what? It's like, I climbed Mount Everest, and so how would that relate to the audience? And you answer how it would relate to you being the speaker at their event. But this is the biggest mistake. I say that every time. I'm like, oh, this is the biggest mistake. This is the biggest mistake. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see speakers make when they're pitching themselves, is they think too much from their own perspective instead of thinking, so what? You're an author, so what? You did XYZ, so what? You grew an 8-figure business, so what? I can care less. How does that relate to me and my event? That's all I care about. So stop saying things about you in an email pitch. They don't care. Don't even say things like how I did with that dumb mistake of, I get standing ovations. It was obvious to me, but you have to think, is it obvious to them? If it's not obvious, you spell it out. It's like, well, what I should have done, I should have said something like, oh, shoot, I mean, they're going to be so inspired. If I don't get a standing ovation, I'll be amazed. Like, and even then, I shouldn't have mentioned me. Like, they'll be so inspired. If there isn't a standing ovation at your event, I mean, I'd be amazed. I mean, if people don't come to you after the event saying that was the most entertaining and inspiring presentation ever, then, hey, I'll give you your money back. Like, I'm telling you, it's insane, right? That's what I should have said instead of saying, oh, I get standing ovations all the time. I was thinking too much about me. When you keep thinking about you, whether you're trying to sell a product, whether you're trying to sell yourself to be on stage, doesn't matter. Whenever you keep thinking about you, it's like you simply don't think about them and now they're less likely to buy, they're less likely to hire you. So whatever you do in your email pitch, keep thinking, so what? You climbed whatever, so what? You're an author, so what? No one cares, right? So think from their perspective. It's like, I mean, why should they really bring you into their event? Why do they want to bring you into their event? Keep thinking from their perspective, not yours.